the Woodford Masters Collection, arguably one of the most polarizing limited releases of the year. And today we have the 2024 Batch Proof coming in at 121.2 proof. MSRP is right at $150. And does this bottle live up to that hefty price tag? Well, today we're going to find out. Welcome back to another episode of Neat Bourbon. My name's Tanner, and today I'm pretty excited to finally be reviewing the latest edition of the Woodfoord Batch Proof collection. So this is coming from their Masters collection, and this is their annual release of their Batch Proof. I also have the 2023 release. Going to be doing a little comparison after we get through this review to see, hey, how does this bottle taste after it was opened up for a bit? How does it compare, and is this bottle actually worth $150? Now, for the most part, I think the general consensus is, the Masters Collection are not worth $150. The gripes are, they're expensive. They changed the bottle from a 750 to a 700 milliliter. They're non-age dated. How can you ask $150 for non-age dated? And all the releases are 90.4 proof. And how can you charge $150 for non-age dated 90.4 proof whiskey? I get it. Those are, definitely questions. But again, Woodford does heat cycle their warehouse, so they do an accelerated maturation process, which is probably why they don't always have, or they don't have, age statements on their bottle. Now, this batch proof is an annual limited release, and it is the only way that you can taste Woodford not at that 90.4 proof. So I personally think that is pretty cool, and me being a guy that enjoys batch proof whiskeys, or at least barrel proof whiskeys, I think it's awesome to be able to have a bottle like that on your shelf. So when you have Woodford fans that come over, you can show them something incredibly unique that most likely they haven't had before. Anyways, so the 2024 release comes in at 121.2 proof. It carries the same mash bill as all past releases. The 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley. And let's go ahead and get into the nose. Honestly, this bottle here is like one of my top two favorite bottles. I thoroughly dig the Thor's Hammer vibe, and the glass on the bottom here is quite hefty. I don't know. I just really dig it. I think it's an incredibly unique looking bottle, and I really like it. Anyways, we're going ahead and get into the nose. Now, again, this bottle has been open for a good bit, a couple weeks, so I wanted to make sure that this bottle had some airtime because I fresh cracked this one and reviewed it last year, and I thought it was a little tight and ethanol forward, and I thought it got better with a little bit of time. So when I fresh cracked this one, it did initially come off very hot, so I'm hoping that it has improved over the past weeks. Man, that is just like a butterscotchy caramel vanilla, very desserty nose there. Man, but yeah, if you dig your nose down deep into the glass, yeah, you do get a bunch of ethanol there. It does kind of smell a little bit hot, but if you're staying above the glass and not digging your nose down in too deep, you get all of those rich, deep, desserty notes, a little bit of chocolate. Almost like a nutty-esque, a very thin, more on the macadamia nut style than a peanut. One of those more buttery, soft nuts. Yeah, but just a lot of thin butterscotch, a lot of vanilla, brown sugars, caramels in there. Overall, very dark, not picking up too many fruity characteristics. That rye spice isn't necessarily being very apparent on the nose, but it all depends on how it tastes. Off to the palate. Cheers. I'm going to go in for one more before I start giving you guys some thoughts. Those brown sugars and caramels definitely transfer over to the palate. That butterscotch note that I was picking up on the nose didn't come through, but there's more of a confectionery sugar sweetness there that kind of twinges on, flirting with being kind of a stewed mixed berry there. It's a very faint berry characteristic there, but it is prevalent. It is incredibly sweet, and that ethanol and proof is really showing itself there on the palate. for 121, proof, I think it is drinking hotter than that, which, some would say, if you dig the proof punch, that's a good thing. Yeah, and like there's like a twinge of something in there that like it gives me like a faintest little like hint of like it's like it's so quick. It's like there's a sharpness there in the very mid palate. So overall, guys, I think that this bottle is pretty solid. I think it has a lot of like those caramel, like dark brown sugar vanillas. It has a lot of like confectionery sugar sweetness there with a little faint hint of like mixed stewed berry there. You're not really picking up, too much oak. And like honestly, like that rye spice isn't really there outside of like a little bit of like a black pepper there on the finish. I will say that this bottle does drink hot. But it's not necessarily bad. Like it just has like the finish, it's just very pronounced, finish on terms of like the proof side, like down in your chest. So it does give you a strong Kentucky hug, which I think is a lot stronger than what most 121 proof. So just want to make sure I call that out. For $150 though, like again, like this is a hard one. I think they're kind of like at that value proposition there. Me personally, I like will buy. I'm happy that I have this bottle. And next year's, batch proof, I will also buy that one as well. Because I do think that these batch proofs, as long as they're under that $150, I think that, for the uniqueness, having the only offering at batch proof, I personally like it on my bar. I do agree that this particular release does drink hot, though. The batch 22 release, the 118.7, I thought this one was good enough to back up. I was a big fan of this one, so I do have this one in my collection. And then the other Masters collection I really liked was this barrel entry proof. This is the only 90.4 proof, Masters collection bottle that like I actually like really dug. So, usually those 90.4s just don't do it for me, but there was some uniqueness in there, and I thought that the flavors were really good. So those are the two that I thought were good enough to back up. I am not going to be looking to back this one up. I'm happy that I have it, and I will drink through it this year and be super stoked. But let's go ahead and get in a comparison to last year's batch. This bottle's been open for about a year now, so plenty of airtime. Man, yeah, very similar, just a little bit less ethanol, even though this one's at a higher proof, like coming off of that nose. But my gosh, this one is explosive coming out of the glass. Yeah, like, that is great. Man, that is wild. Yeah, man, this one definitely drinks a lot hotter than this 124. This is, like 3 proof points higher than this one, and this one drinks way below its proof, where this one drinks above it. The viscosity is when you're talking about the flavors there, you're getting so many of those, like brown sugars, caramels, your vanillas. Like there's no nuttiness there. There is that like same, very similar proof. I mean, they taste incredibly similar, but like the viscosity's amped up a little bit more in this one. It seems softer around the edges. Whereas like that proof was really showing itself and like coming across as slightly more ethanol forward, where all of that had dissipated on this bottle, because I remember it was ethanol forward on the first sip, where this one it was a little bit more ethanol forward. I think these bottles do get a lot better with time, so I think honestly I would kind of prefer the 23 to the 24 just off this first sip. But that being said, once I let this bottle sit for another 6 months, maybe that ethanol will kind of dissipate on this bottle as well. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you have, would you please consider giving me a like? Would you please consider subscribing? And as always, my name's Tanner. This is Neat Bourbon. And pop the bottles and share the pours, and we'll see you in the next one.